Oh, look what we have here. You think you can just walk around like you own the place? Ah,
It started like any ordinary afternoon in the small town of Ridgewood. The sun was bright, casting long shadows over the sidewalk where 15-year-old Amara Williams was walking home from school. She carried her backpack with ease, humming softly, unaware that a confrontation was about to challenge everything she and the local authorities believed. A routine traffic stop had brought Officer Dan Perkins to the edge of the street. Known for his arrogance and dismissive attitude, Perkins had earned a reputation among the locals for underestimating young people, especially those who didn't fit the picture he expected. When Amara accidentally stepped onto the edge of the road while dodging a skateboard, Perkins barked at her to move. Hey, watch where you're going, kid. Amara looked up, calm but unafraid. Sorry, sir, she said politely, stepping aside. But when Perkins noticed her t-shirt emblazoned with the logo of the military special forces, he sneered. What's this, little girl? You in the army or something? Amara straightened, her voice steady. No, sir, my mom's in special forces. Perkins laughed aloud, the sound sharp and condescending. Your mom? Special forces? Yeah, right. What's she gonna do? Send you in to fight bad guys? Amara's cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, but from a surge of determination. She knew people doubted her because she was young, black, and quiet, but she also knew that her mother was not someone to be underestimated. Before she could respond, the unmistakable roar of a sleek black SUV echoed down the street. The vehicle pulled up smoothly, doors locking with authority, and a figure stepped out. Tall, imposing, and radiating confidence, her mother approached, uniform crisp, metals gleaming in the sunlight. Officer Perkins froze mid-laugh, his smirk fading as he realized who had just arrived. The very woman Amara had been speaking of, the one he had mocked, was real, powerful, and standing right in front of him. Her presence alone commanded silence. Is there a problem here? She asked, voice low but carrying the weight of experience that demanded respect. Perkins swallowed, suddenly aware that this was no ordinary confrontation. No, ma'am. I was just... Amara's mother cut him off, her eyes sharp. I suggest you learn to treat people with respect, Officer Perkins. Mocking my daughter on the street is not part of your job description, and neither is underestimating anyone just because they're young or black. The air was thick with tension. Neighbors who had begun to gather on their porches whispered, captivated by the sudden shift in authority. Amara stepped forward, her chin high. See, I told you. Perkins looked from mother to daughter, humiliation clear in his eyes. He had laughed at the wrong family, and now the lesson in respect and justice was about to be delivered in full. Officer Perkins cleared his throat, trying to regain control, but the confidence radiating from Amara's mother made it impossible. I suggest you step aside and let this girl continue on her way, she said, her tone sharp, precise, and commanding. Amara swallowed, though she didn't step back. Her mother's presence alone had shifted the dynamic. But Amara knew that true justice wasn't just about intimidation. It was about standing tall and letting truth speak for itself. Perkins tried to laugh again, though it came out strained. Look, ma'am, I didn't mean any harm. I was just joking. You were not joking, Amara's mother interrupted, her gaze unwavering. You were mocking a child, questioning her integrity, and underestimating her because of assumptions about her appearance. That behavior is unacceptable, and it has consequences. Neighbors peeked out of windows, phones in hand, capturing the scene. It was clear. This was no ordinary encounter. The little girl they had dismissed moments ago was now at the center of a moment that would make Officer Perkins rethink every careless word he had ever spoken. Amara stepped forward, meeting Perkins's eyes. You think it's funny to laugh at people you don't understand. But I know my worth, and so does everyone who matters. Perkins opened his mouth, then closed it. The weight of truth and the presence of a woman trained to operate in the world's most dangerous environments was impossible to ignore. Amara's mother reached into her bag and produced a badge. Not just any badge, but one signaling her authority and her accomplishments in special forces. I suggest you remember that respect is earned, and assumed disrespect can't go unchallenged, she said. The officer's hands twitched near his belt, but he knew resistance would only worsen the situation. Slowly, he nodded. Understood, ma'am. Sorry, miss. Amara smiled, a quiet victory in her eyes. Justice had been served, not through anger, not through force, but through calm authority, truth, and courage. But the story didn't end there. Word of the incident spread through Ridgewood like wildfire. Local schools used it as a teaching moment. Lessons in respect, courage, and understanding that appearances can deceive. Officer Perkins faced an internal review and sensitivity training, ensuring the encounter would not be repeated. And for Amara, she walked home with her head held high, knowing that courage had a voice and truth had power, even when others laughed at it first. In the days that followed, Ridgewood buzzed with whispers and excitement. The video of the encounter had gone viral, neighbors sharing clips of Amara standing tall while her mother revealed her Special Forces credentials. Schools, local organizations, and social media were filled with discussions about respect, authority, and the courage of young people who stand up for themselves. Amara's mother didn't just fade back into obscurity. She began holding self-defense and empowerment workshops for teens, teaching them not only physical skills, but the confidence to speak up when wronged. Amara attended every session, proud of her mother, but also inspired by how her own courage had sparked a ripple effect across the community. Meanwhile, Officer Perkins faced the consequences of his actions. The internal review determined that his behavior had been unprofessional and discriminatory. He was required to undergo retraining, and he received a formal reprimand, proof that authority, no matter how arrogant, could be held accountable when confronted with truth and integrity. Amara watched the changes with quiet satisfaction. Justice wasn't just about reprimanding the officer, it was about creating awareness and fostering respect. She saw younger kids in her neighborhood begin to stand taller, speak up, and act with confidence. The ripple effect of one brave moment was far larger than she could have imagined. One afternoon, Amara and her mother walked through the local park, greeting neighbors who now treated them with admiration. A group of teens approached nervously, one holding a piece of paper. We made this for you, he said, handing Amara a hand-drawn poster. Courage is contagious. Amara smiled, her heart swelling. That single act of standing up to an arrogant officer had transformed not just her life, but the lives of those around her. The final moment of triumph came during a town hall meeting organized to address community relations with law enforcement. Amara's mother was invited to speak, and she brought Amara with her. Standing before a room of officers, parents, and community leaders, she spoke with authority and calm precision. Respect is not optional, she said. It is earned, given, and upheld by all of us. We teach our children that courage matters, that truth matters, and that justice is not a privilege, it is a right. Officer Perkins sat in the back, humbled, the lesson clear and unforgettable. The town cheered, not for punishment, but for the accountability, growth, and empowerment that had transformed the community. And for Amara, the lesson was simple but unforgettable, even when the world laughs at you. Even when others doubt your strength, courage and truth always win in the end. As the months passed, Ridgewood continued to feel the aftershocks of that single confrontation. Amara's bravery became a local legend among schools, youth programs, and even law enforcement circles. The story of a young Black girl standing her ground while being laughed at had become a powerful lesson in courage, accountability, and respect. Amara's mother remained a steadfast presence, not just in her daughter's life, but in the community at large. The workshops she led grew in size and influence, drawing teens and parents eager to learn about confidence, leadership, and resilience. Amara often shared her own experience at these sessions, reminding others that even small acts of courage can lead to monumental change. Officer Perkins, meanwhile, faced ongoing scrutiny. Beyond the internal reprimand and retraining, he had to attend public forums where community members spoke about accountability and racial bias. Each time he sat in those rooms, listening to honest, powerful testimonies, he felt the weight of his actions and the importance of respect, lessons that could not be ignored. One day, As Amara walked home from school with her mother, a young girl ran up, clutching a notebook. "I wanted to tell you," she said, eyes wide, "that after seeing what you did, I stood up to a teacher who was treating me unfairly." "Thank you." Amara smiled, realizing the magnitude of her courage. Her moment of standing up to an arrogant officer had not only led to justice in that one incident, but had inspired countless others to find their voice, speak their truth, and demand fairness. Back at home, Amara reflected on everything that had happened. She thought of Officer Perkins, humbled, the neighbors, educated, the teens, empowered, and herself, a girl who had dared to speak truth when others doubted her. Justice, she realized, wasn't a single act. It was a ripple, a chain reaction, a lasting transformation. It was about standing firm, demanding respect, and lifting others along the way. The sun set over Ridgewood that evening, golden lights spilling across the streets where once laughter had been used to belittle, now replaced by whispers of admiration and inspiration. Amar knew this was just the beginning, not only for herself and her mother, but for everyone learning that courage, truth, and justice are unstoppable forces. The following week cemented Amara and her mother as pillars of the Ridgewood community. Their story had traveled far beyond the town limits, shared across social media, news outlets, and schools. People admired not only the bravery of a young Black girl standing up for herself, but also the quiet, commanding strength of her mother, an elite Special Forces officer who refused to let ignorance go unchecked. Officer Perkins, once arrogant and dismissive, faced the full weight of accountability. He completed intensive sensitivity and leadership training, publicly acknowledging the lessons he had learned about respect, assumptions, and bias. For the first time, he understood the power of humility and the importance of listening before judging. At home, Amara walked through the doors of her neighborhood youth center, greeted by cheers from kids she had inspired. Hand-drawn posters, letters, and gifts filled the room, tokens of gratitude for teaching others that courage matters, that standing up for truth can create real change. Her mother stood by her side, smiling with pride. "You did this, Amara. Not just for yourself, but for everyone watching, learning, and finding their voice." Amara shook her head, humility shining through. "We did it together. And now everyone can see that respect isn't given, it's earned, defended, and demanded." In the town hall that evening, community leaders, neighbors, and even law enforcement gathered for a special session celebrating accountability and justice. Amara was invited to speak, and when she stepped to the podium, silence filled the room. "Justice isn't about punishing someone once," she said, voice steady, strong, and unwavering. "It's about changing minds, creating understanding, and making sure respect is given where it's due. Courage is contagious, and truth will always find its way." Applause erupted, echoing through the hall. Officer Perkins, sitting in the back, nodded with newfound understanding. The lesson had been learned. The moment of mockery had transformed into a lifelong memory of accountability and empowerment. That night, Amara returned home, her mother beside her, the warm glow of the streetlights reflecting on the quiet streets of Ridgewood. Justice had been served, not with anger, but with courage, truth, and unshakable integrity. And the story would live on, inspiring anyone who had ever been laughed at, doubted, or underestimated. Months after the viral encounter, Ridgewood had transformed in ways no one could have anticipated. Amara's courage had sparked more than just local headlines. It had created a cultural shift in the town. Children and teens who once feared speaking up now walked with confidence. Parents shared her story at PTA meetings, encouraging their children to stand tall when confronted with injustice. Even law enforcement officers approached interactions differently, aware that accountability was now a community standard rather than an abstract ideal. Amara herself grew into a symbol of empowerment. Her afternoons were filled not only with school, but with mentoring sessions at local youth centers. She taught younger kids how to advocate for themselves, how to remain calm under pressure, and how to recognize when authority had overstepped its bounds. Each session was infused with lessons from her own experience. The initial laughter, the mockery, the confrontation, and finally, the victory when truth and courage triumphed. Her mother, a formidable special forces officer, became a visible community leader. She held empowerment workshops, training seminars, and lectures not just in Ridgewood, but in neighboring towns. Together, mother and daughter created a program that combined self-defense, leadership, and civic awareness, transforming the very meaning of mentorship in the region. Officer Perkins, meanwhile, underwent a humbling journey. The internal investigation and required sensitivity and leadership training were just the beginning. He had to face the public, listen to testimonies, and acknowledge the harm caused by his dismissive and arrogant behavior. Slowly, Perkins began to internalize the lessons of humility, respect, and accountability, understanding that authority without empathy was dangerous. One crisp afternoon, Amara walked through the park with her mother. Children waved and called her name, and teens who had been inspired by her viral encounter approached, shyly at first, then with growing confidence. One young boy handed her a handmade journal filled with notes. "Because of you, I speak up." A young girl shyly said, "I told my teacher no when she treated me unfairly. I remembered what you did." Amara smiled, realizing the extraordinary power of one brave act. Her simple, courageous response to a dismissive officer had created ripples that touched countless lives. The laughter that had once threatened to diminish her had become a catalyst for transformation, and the lesson of accountability had spread farther than she had ever imagined. The town of Ridgewood itself had shifted. Local schools adopted programs teaching respect, racial awareness, and the importance of standing up for oneself. Law enforcement incorporated empathy and community engagement into their daily routines. The streets, once quiet and tense, now felt alive with empowerment and mutual respect. At a town hall meeting months later, Amara and her mother were invited to speak in front of a full audience, including city leaders, law enforcement, parents, and students. The room was electric with anticipation. Amara stepped to the podium, her voice steady and commanding. Courage is contagious. Respect is earned, but it's also demanded when wrongs are committed. We all have a responsibility to stand up when something is unjust, no matter how small or intimidating it may seem. Today, my story is no longer just mine. It belongs to everyone who has ever been laughed at, doubted, or underestimated. Her mother joined her, adding, "Accountability transforms communities. Courage transforms lives. And justice, true justice, is never passive. It is spoken, defended, and shared with others." Let this be a lesson to everyone here. Underestimate anyone at your own risk. Officer Perkins, seated in the back, nodded solemnly. He had learned a lesson that words alone could not teach. Respect, humility, and awareness were the cornerstones of true authority. As the applause swept through the hall, Amara and her mother exchanged a glance, one that conveyed pride, relief, and the understanding that their courage had created lasting change. That night, back at home, Amara walked past the driveway where the incident had begun, now illuminated by soft golden streetlights. The memories of fear, mockery, and doubt had transformed into a quiet sense of triumph. The town had learned that laughter at the wrong person could lead to accountability. Underestimation could lead to admiration, and courage, no matter one's age, could inspire real change. Amara reflected on the journey, the confrontation, the viral attention, the workshops, the mentoring, and the systemic changes. Justice had not just been served, it had multiplied, reaching far beyond the single moment on the sidewalk. She understood now that courage combined with truth created a force unstoppable by arrogance or ignorance. The final chapter of this story was written not in one dramatic act, but in every inspired voice that rose, every life she touched, and every lesson learned by those who had once doubted her. Justice, empowerment, and accountability had become a permanent part of Ridgewood's identity. And as Amara looked out at the stars above the quiet streets, she knew this truth. No one should ever be mocked for who they are or underestimated for their courage. The world may laugh at you, but truth and justice will always rise, and sometimes it comes in the form of a 15-year-old girl standing tall with the unwavering support of her mother. The evening air was still, golden light spilling across Ridgewood as Amara and her mother stood on the quiet sidewalk where it had all begun. The town had changed, but the lesson remained eternal. Courage, truth, and justice always prevail. Neighbors waved from their porches. Children ran by smiling, and officers walked the streets with newfound awareness and respect. Every glance, every smile, every whisper carried the echoes of what had happened. The moment a girl dared to speak, and a mother dared to step in, together rewriting the rules of respect and accountability. Amara turned to her mother, her voice filled with quiet pride. "We did it, Mom. Not just for me, but for everyone watching. For everyone who's ever been doubted." Her mother smiled, placing a steady hand on her daughter's shoulder. "No, Amara, you did it. You stood tall when others laughed. You showed courage. That's the real power. And now, you've inspired change that will last far beyond today." As the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting long shadows and a warm glow across the town, Amari realized something profound. Justice isn't a single moment, it's a movement. It's the ripple effect of courage, the inspiration that spreads from one person to another, and the changes that follow when truth is spoken boldly. Officer Perkins, once mocking and arrogant, now walked past quietly, his gaze meeting Amara's. No words were needed. He had learned humility, respect, and the undeniable truth. Underestimating courage and the power of truth always comes at a cost. And in that golden light, Amara understood fully. Even in a world that doubts you, laughs at you, or underestimates you, justice always finds its champions. Sometimes it comes quietly, sometimes it comes boldly, but it always comes. The final moment was simple, yet unforgettable. Amara and her mother walking home together, side by side, their heads high, their hearts strong, their legacy already taking root in every life they had touched. Justice had not only been served, it had been immortalized. If you believe in justice and stories that expose the truth, hit that like button, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the shadows.